So hello, welcome to another happiness class. We do this every week. Check out my previous ones at bigquestionsanswered.com. And every week I talk about something I think is incredibly important to our happiness, based on psychology, science, and inspired by Islam. When I say inspired by Islam, you don't have to be a Muslim to follow it. It's just logic, really. And so this week, roughly, we're talking about peace. And how do you find inner peace? But really, it's something really dear to my heart that I feel really sad when I come back to London from the Middle East. I feel really sad why people are so miserable, because I know people really well down underneath the surface. And so the statistics are saying that as well, right? Why they're suffering so much when they don't need to be. When I say coming back from the Middle East, I see a lot of people much happier there, right? And maybe in parts of Africa, people much happier there because they've got something that we're not but we don't have here, and it's really simple. I'm going to give the short version right now, and then I'll give the longer version in a second. The short version goes. Can you make sure like I'm in shot? I'm in shot, yeah. Thank you, Jackala. Thank you, my cameraman Adil, my little brother. The short version is something like this. In the West, we think happiness is in the small space between getting high and pain. That's a very tiny space. And in reality, happiness is somewhere else in a dimension called peace. Now let me prove very quickly in a simple way that happiness is not in that tiny space, really. When I say happiness lasting more than a couple of seconds, right? So for example, how comes food stops tasting good after a short while when you've eaten? You stop really enjoying it. How comes depression, which is the most painful kind of sadness, okay, that is not really physical pain. That's another dimension, another way. You're missing something. Okay, and what I'm saying, by the way, what I tried to do in my happiness class is not teach anything particularly new. I'm just talking about very basic things that psychologists have known. So what I sound like right now maybe is something just pure spiritual, but this is what psychologists have been saying for a very long time. They say that, well, let me talk about the greatest psychologist on the topic of happiness, Viktor Frankl. Okay, you can always check out my videos and notes afterwards for notes on what he's saying, right? He says, happiness is not in things. No, he doesn't want to be on camera, it's okay. Happiness is not in things, but in something called meaning. Doing meaningful things. This is what psychologists have known for a very long time. But the reason why I talk about these things is the public thinks one thing, and the science of psychology, is completely the opposite. And that's what makes me sad. People are struggling with happiness because they're simply looking in the wrong place. If they knew better, then they'll be happier, right? Now, when I said there's a thing called peace, right? The reason why people might not be too excited about the word peace as a way to finding real long-lasting happiness, because it sounds a bit boring. And it's true that peace is a subtle form of happiness. So the real kinds of happiness, the lasting forms of happiness, are connection, which sounds really boring. But I want people to realize the happiness through peace, although subtle, is far more powerful than any drug. The people who experience peace in their lives, inner peace, are far more happier than people who take drugs. And that's quite obvious, quite plain and statistically true, whatever you want to describe it as. So, but why is it, before I talk about how to find inner peace, just one last, why is it that people struggle? Why are we so easily tricked or moved or interested in finding happiness through things? Because we've been trained in the West by adverts to believe that happiness is in the things they want us to buy. And the reason why it's so easy to trick the people in the West is because we do not have any strong values. We don't have strong family values. We don't have strong community values. We have no strong values to. Sorry?
What about self-value as well? Self-value.
No, values are.
Self-value maybe.
No, that's a different thing. That's that's going back to selfishness, actually, self-value. Okay, I'm talking about values. Really, are things that you stick to for usually for other people, especially when you're talking about meaning, which is what is the root of happiness, right? So. We don't have any strong values that anchor us from floating in any direction that the advertisers take us to. People who are religious, they don't, like I'm religious, I don't get affected by the iPhone adverts. I don't feel like buying the next iPhone and the next iPhone and the next iPhone forever, because I have strong values and I'm very clear about what is good and bad. So it's important to have, but when you don't have that, when you lose religion, which is what this country has done, and for some good reason, because some religious people have done some bad things, right? But that doesn't mean you lose everything, right? You just ignore the bad people. So anyway, let's talk about how you actually find inner peace, right? So, one of the reasons why we struggle with inner peace, actually I'm going to give the prescription straight away. When I say prescription, I say especially for the West. So anything, this is this is inspired by Islam, but again anybody can learn from this. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said anything that gives you contentment of mind or peace of mind is good, and anything that troubles your mind is bad, even if it's allowed by the law. Okay, now why is this the prescription I think is fundamental and very important to people in the West? Because we in the West have been listening to what I call outerism, the valuing and just looking at the outer shell of things, believing in the outer shell of things, instead of appreciating the inside. So we've lost...
Judging ourselves based on our outer appearance,
yes,
based on other people's gaze. Is that judging ourselves based on other people's gaze?
It's basically judging a book by its cover, let's say. Valuing things from the outside, okay? But then because of that, we've lost the ability to listen to ourselves inside. Like, listen to our own feelings, okay? Well, what actually... So I appreciate that. You said, what do we want? It's more like, what do we need? Because our wants are forever and go on forever, and it can be addictive, right? So what do we need? I'll give you an example. If we really were able to listen to ourselves, we would know, like the scientists have now told us, that just by being in nature, that is more powerful as an antidepressant than any drugs that Big Pharma would like to sell us. Right? But you can't say that in public. You can't say that because Big Pharma control the mass media and they want you to keep taking antidepressants. But if you listen to your inside, this is what the scientists are already saying, but if you listen to your inside, you wouldn't have to wait for these, scientists to finally tell us that nature is good for us. Right? These are very subtle things, but these are things that really make you happy. Right?
Does that mean that the more we allow ourselves to be judged by outsiders inwards, our inner character, the more we would sell out? Or, devalue ourselves until there's nothing left of inside of us, basically.
Right, so judging people, be worried, what you're talking about is being judged by other people. You need to first judge yourself, and then I'm going to actually talk about the next thing. So after inner peace, so I'm talking about how to find inner peace, there's a thing called outer peace, which is the next thing. I think you're talking about that kind of thing, your relationship with other people. Okay, so, also, just to finish off the inner peace thing, because I like my things to be quick and snappy, because all I want to talk about is some simple things that will change your life, right? The other thing, just an example of listening to yourself and what people in the West are doing really badly. I'm a Westerner, by the way, so I should say we as well, okay? Me, us, whatever, right? Okay. One thing we really do badly, and if we listen to our hearts, we'll realize it's not a good thing. We do not give love and friendship for free. What do I mean by that? And this is statistically true. What do I mean by that? I mean that we only make friends with people who agree with us. And that's statistically what the science says. This is what psychologists say. So what does that mean? Why is that not giving love for free? That's like me saying, I'm only going to be friends with you or you if you agree with me. What does that mean? If I'm going to give my friendship to you only if you tell me I'm clever. Do you get what I'm saying? Because that's what agreeing means.
Ideals to be part of that group.
No, I think you don't have to have the same ideals to love. Love is something that should always be given for free and not an exchange for an agreement. Do you know what I mean? Because that's basically, they've turned love into a capital thing, capitalism, right? You exchange. That's what we've become, right? So anyway, so that's that thing, inner peace. Let's quickly move to outer peace. So what do I mean by outer peace? Outer peace means, and this is another thing we really struggle with, is harmony with people and the outside world. Okay, just generally like the environment, for example. Okay, so what's the prescription for that? Again, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, you, the people, communities, will do well if you protect yourselves from two things: envy and hate. Right? Now, why is this a problem? And why is envy why am I mentioning, especially regarding the West? Okay, in the West, it's very natural to be envious, and the reason for that is our definition of success. Our definition of success is what?
Comparative wealth, maybe being richer than the other person is our definition of success.
Oh, you got it. You got it. Right. Our definition of success is to be better than other people. Right? And it doesn't need to be that. Why is that the definition of success? You're not going to be happier if you do that. Because you're happy. I'll tell you when you're happy. And this is what I miss from living in the Middle East. And maybe in Africa. Can you tell me where you're from by any chance? You don't want to say, okay, fine. I appreciate your company. I appreciate your focus.
If you're still smiling.
Yeah. Alright, cool. I want to move to Ghana by any chance. I don't know if you're Ghanaian by any, or you live near there, but that's just, we can talk about that afterwards, right? But anyway, yeah, so this is what I missed in the Middle East. Everybody's brothers and sisters, and you're happier that way, right? You don't need to compete. You don't need to be better than your brother. That doesn't make people happy. You don't need to be better than your friend. That doesn't make you happy, okay? But our definition of success... Hey, assalamu alaikum. Okay, our definition of success is that we want to be better than other people. That's what fame is. You know, like Richard's Got Talent. I want to be the best. Like, what? Why does that make you? Just be good at what you do. That's all. You don't need to be better than other people, right? Okay, so envy is natural in the West, but how do you overcome it? Step one. I love your company. Come in. I'm almost finished, and I want to get your opinions on this. Okay, so I've gone through inner peace, and we can talk about this afterwards. But now I'm talking about something called outer peace, which is our relationships to others and the environment and stuff like that, right? And I said there's two things we need to overcome to have outer peace. That's envy and hate, right? Now, how do we overcome envy? We only overcome envy when we feel we're rich already. And the only way you feel rich already, and you should feel rich, first of all, you're on planet Earth. That's a pretty amazing place to be, right? If you think about it, it's an amazing place to be. But we don't realize it because we don't have inner peace. So step one to having outer peace is having inner peace. And lastly, this is the end of the speech, alright? Okay, how do you overcome hate? Hate. And I forgot. Let's see what my notes say. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so we overcome hate. Well, why do we hate at all? Let's think about when we last hated somebody, right? It's because you were a bit disappointed in that person. And why were you disappointed in that person? Because you expect something from that person that they didn't give you. But that's not the path to happiness. The path to happiness is when you serve people. And that's going to come full circle now to what Viktor Frankl, the greatest psychologist on the topic of happiness, said. He said, you only find happiness in meaning, and meaning comes from service to other people. So when you serve people, you'll be happy. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time. Thank you. You can stop recording.